Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Community Exchange podcast, where we talk to friends, old and new, about their careers and the future of the media industry. I'm Matthew Scott Goldstein, better known as
MSG.
Thank you, Nina. As always, the Community Exchange podcast is brought to you by OpenWeb, the company building a safer, fairer, and more trustworthy internet. Now I have a great conversation for you with Nina Gould, Bramley anointed Chief Innovation Officer at Forbes. Nina is a visionary product, and we love talking to product people, and media leader who crafts inspiring digital experiences, scaling the iconic Forbes brand through design excellence, audience insight, and platform innovation. Okay, Nina.
All right.
Where do you want to start?
I mean, we can start with my career if you want.
Okay, so
I do want to say, though, that my dad was MSG also. He was Maurice Stevenson Gould. So I have grown up with an MSG.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never
and
met
I refrained
anyone
from
else.
making the Madison Square Garden joke or the monosodium glutamate joke with someone else
So
made.
you've been at Forbes, because I had to double check, because the number is crazy.
A long time.
It's 26
years.
Half a deck of cards.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Cards.
So how did you get there? How did it start? What was your first job? Let's start from there.
So it was definitely my first job in media. I had done, a variety of stuff. I had come right from a small marketing agency. My background is in fine arts originally. Like that's what I went to college for, fine art photography. Very useful.
But
major.
I think sometimes the fine art people make the best product people.
We have,
arts,
we have an attention to detail. We have a visual acuity, and I think we think about how images affect people
Design,
and
yes.
audiences.
Yeah.
So I kind of gravitated towards design in the early part of my career. I got hired at Forbes.com, not even Forbes.
Who was running Forbes.com? This is 99 now?
99. I can't even remember. I'm not even sure we had a CEO then. I was hired by David Turbuck, who was our editor-in-chief at the time.
Okay.
I was hired as a junior designer, so I worked on the digital design team, which was under editorial at the time. So I got hired by the editor, and it was very early days of the internet. We were literally on 23rd Street. We were in Silicon Alley. We were like half a block away from the big sign on the Flatiron Building, and it was fun. It was exciting. It was very cowboy. Like we were literally. I mean, for those of you out there who have a coding background, like we were literally editing the HTML in flat files and FTPing them up to the head ends to actually change, the promotion on the top of the homepage. It was crazy.
It's insane.
Which to me was terrifying in my early days because you could break the homepage by just leaving a tag out. So that was scary but fun. And Forbes was. Forbes got in the game very early. When I got hired in '99, we had the website Forbes.com already for 2 years, and I think we were into.
Must have been one of the first publishers to have.
Yeah, it was early, and
right.
I mean, I think what was unique for us too is that we were run completely separately. We had our own newsroom. We were not, we put the magazine up online, but we also were publishing original content every single day, multiple pieces a day, which I think. I don't know how many other publishers were doing that. And certainly magazine publishers, I think we were really early on.
Yeah, in 1999, I was working at Nickelodeon, and I moved to San Francisco because like Forbes, you had to have a separate .com instance and office somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because now I've talked to, Mike Perlis, who was our old CEO, who's actually consulting with the Forbes family at the time about what the strategy was behind that. And they were pretty prescient about the fact that the internet audience was going to be very different from the print audience,
yes.
At least in those times, with early adoption. And so they really wanted it to have a different point of view and different voices. And I think we were much more technology focused really than the magazine was at the time. We were doing we were doing some of the core stuff like investing, coverage, and some leadership stuff. But, they really gave the web property the latitude to really grow and scale itself. And I think they were also pretty prescient about the fact that the business model was going to be different. I mean, it was going to be advertising based, but the approach was going to be different and the scale was going to be different. That my early part was really working as a designer and a coder. I was a front-end coder too. We always kind of did everything. We didn't
It's crazy thinking of someone
out.
designing and coding as well. It doesn't happen that much.
Not anymore, but it was
Right.
that was very common then. It was really common that designers were learning HTML, once CSS, like I think I pre-existed CSS at the beginning of my career, honestly, which is really crazy. But, mostly we knew that. It was just more efficient that way.
Okay, so this is 99. Then how did you morph from design into
product?
Yes. What was next for you to get there?
I mean, there was many steps in between.
Okay, give us some of the steps.
I think the biggest step was, I think I moved to my second office. Forbes has been in a lot of different locations since I've been there. Probably the biggest, the first big kind of transition and pivot that Forbes made was to rejoin the two halves, right? Like to rejoin the print property with the digital property. And that really came as, the digital revenues were rising, our footprint was bigger, we were kind of representing a much bigger part of the whole, revenue pie of the company and the visibility pie of the company. So, it was a very, we'll talk later about GenAI and how that's what that disruption's about. That was a big disruption, honestly. Like that was, the first real, like the shift is really from print to digital. And internally, it was scary, for the print side. For the print side, I think they were really like, "Is this, what is my job going to be? Am I going to have a job?"
Many unknowns back then.
Yeah, and I was literally in the design department teaching print designers how to think about digital design, what tools they would use. They had to learn HTML. Like it was a really interesting time. But I think it was probably one of the first times that I saw what the company was capable of, like the kind of flexible thinking and innovation and willingness to pivot that this very old established brand, I mean, we're 108 years old now, we were, 90 then, the company was not afraid to really fundamentally rethink their business model and how they operated day to day.
Right, and I guess also between like the people we know, like Archer and Mike Smith and Dugan, you have some amazing people there.
Yeah, and that was like they were really all on the digital side, and that was really that. We started to really lead from digital thinking, which had always been, scrappier and used to like fast paced change. The internet's never. I mean, I was thinking somebody was mentioning the other day, like, GenAI, the GenAI advent is like the beginning of the internet. And at the beginning of the internet, like there was no inkling of what the internet would be.
I think there's no inkling what the internet will be also in 5 years.
I know.
I think none of us have any clue. It's moving so fast.
But like the digital landscape it's built on change. It thrives on change. There is no stasis.
And technology always wins too.
Technology always leads, yeah.
Yes, technology always
definitely. I think we can make the argument about what technology wins. There's a graveyard of technologies that have
technology always leads in today's world. Yes,
it does. Especially now. No, not even. I mean, the printing press. The cotton gin. That's like these are transformative technologies that changed societies, that changed, the way business was done.
Okay, but I want to focus on how did you get from design Forbes into product, and how that all materialize and.
So that, I was working very, very closely with the product team. I mean, once we actually had a product team, that was, it's a somewhat new discipline. So I was leading the design team at the time and was working very closely with our head of product. And, I was really, I was working very closely with the product folks, with the product managers. In a lot of cases, I was mentoring them, kind of teaching them how to think, not just about visual design, but really like root everything, not just in, the kind of user-centric approach and making sure that we were leading with our audience, but also I think because I had been at the brand for so long, I was very good at like translating Forbes.
And if I remember what Jenny Baird said as a product person from BBC, you're like sort of born with the product instincts of what to do. And it feels like you have them and you knew what to do and you sort of gravitated there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that at some point got recognized. We had like a little bit of shift in leadership with editorial, and I had kind of a new boss who came in and was like, "You're the person to run the product team, honestly." And at first it was like, okay, I've never done this. I'm going to lead a group of people who've gone to school for this or had a career in this and trained for this. I've never done their job. Are they going to respect me in that leadership role? But I think what I quickly realized is I have a lot to offer them and a lot of guidance and insight that isn't rooted in
Well, it felt like you had that guidance as a lead designer
Yeah.
too, that they sort of saw this and that's why they put you there.
Yeah, they definitely. And I'm humbled for that, and that kind of put me on the path, honestly, that I am now. I mean, I guess it's, there's continuity there, but, and so that really shifted my focus a lot towards, how can we make sure that we are really connecting our brand, our journalism with our audience. And I think, the responsibility of the editorial team is our journalism, our voice, our storytelling, and the responsibility of the product team and the design team to work with them and build the product is to be the voice of the audience, right? Like we're the person that sits in the empty chair, like Elijah.
But it feels like that doesn't happen all the time with most existing publications out there.
I think it's a hard shift for them.
And it feels like the products have been the same for a decade.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think my advantage is that I started on the digital side. And so I didn't have that, like I didn't have any of the blinders on or any of the kind of hidebound thinking about like, we need to present our journalism in the way that we think. We can't, we need to be the thought leaders and, like a somewhat of a resistance to an audience mindset, to really like listening to your audience and understanding how that guides both your content strategy and your product strategy. It shouldn't fundamentally shift it, but you need to listen, because people's expectations change, the way they, their interests change, their consumption habits of information definitely change. And you always have to be willing to listen to that and to adapt what you do to make sure that you stay relevant. That again, like that's how we've lasted for 108 years. If we had just stayed with, what BC Forbes was writing about, in 1917, we would not be here.
And as a product person, do you spend a lot of time with editorial also, sort of the person in between editorial and tech? Editorial and business?
Yes. I mean,
Commercial?
product, that's the unique position of product, is that they kind of sit at the nexus of everything.
Which not too many people have that purview in companies at all.
No, not at all. So I have always been and continue to work very closely with our editorial teams. Obviously I oversee our tech team. I oversee our product team. I also have, commercial arms under me now.
So you just got a big promotion, right? So what's your big role now? And just tell me real quick, it was product and then I
was chief product officer.
For a while.
For a while. I think I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
And I had been VP of product before
Okay.
that for also another probably 4 years before that. So that was like the product, portion of my career. And about 2.5 weeks ago.
Today's date is July 31st,
Yeah.
2025.
I think it was 15th.
Okay.
We announced my new role, which is Chief Innovation Officer, which is still like a little bit humbling for me.
Okay, and what does that exactly mean, Chief Innovation Officer?
Oh man, sorry.
Oh.
Such bad form. Forgot to mute. We are at a point where our industry is facing a pretty, what feels like a pretty existential crisis, a pretty existential threat. And this is a time where where once again we really need to take a hard look at everything we do.
Yeah, no pressure, Nina.
No pressure at all. We need to take a hard look at everything we do, and we need to make some real choices about our business models, about our kind of content focus, about our audience experience, all of that. And I think that the way that you have to address that kind of change and what could feel like kind of a chaotic landscape is through innovation. I mean, innovation is the discipline of identifying problems and using novel approaches to kind of bridge gaps and bring together things that were previously separated.
Yeah, it feels like innovation is product times 2 or 3.
It is. I think like people mostly think like the lazy definition of innovation is like it's something new or it's something cool or it's like it uses AI. I think a lot of people right now are like, oh, AI, innovation is AI. But to me, innovation is problem solving. And it's like it's applying new thinking to solve real world problems. And right now, there are a lot of problems for the publishing industry. We are.
Do you have a big whiteboard that says, here's all the problems, and then here's what I'm going to innovate us out of it?
I don't have a whiteboard, but I have a running list, definitely. And it's not just me. Like, I am not the only one who's leading this battle. We have a lot of really great leadership, and we have a lot of really talented people who are putting their heads against this problem. And right now, it's a matter of focusing our mind on the things that are the most important, honestly.
So what's the most important for you? Is it the user? Is it like?
I think it's two things. I mean, user behavior and user patterns and user expectation is going to is shifting, and is going to continue to shift massively. Like,
can we talk more about that? Because I
of course.
Totally agree. Yes.
I think that people in our industry are very Google Zero focused, right? Which is definitely a problem. That's an issue. But I think the thing that maybe they're not talking about enough is the expectation of audiences in terms of how they consume information and how they are delivered information.
Because in the past 2.5 years, we've been taught there's a different way now to get answers to questions we have.
Yes. But I think that it's really only recently that we're really seeing like the beginning of mass adoption of that. Like, there was a lot of Silicon Valley people and a lot of people in our industry who were using ChatGPT more and more on a daily basis and really relying on these GenAI-based search experiences or GenAI for research or writing, which is an incredibly powerful, like, transformational tool. But I think we're now seeing the mass adoption because the big players are really leaning much harder into it.
And they're going all in.
They are. I mean, I think you could argue Google is still split. Like, they're not all in. They're still very traditional. They're still, traditional search focused, but
they have to keep the...
Right. They're in a very...
Yes.
We spend a lot of time talking about like other, thinking about Google as like what they're doing to us. They're in a really tough position. They really are. Because they need to figure out, because they're not OpenAI that has a singular focus, right? They are a very diverse business. They have a lot of business lines, and they depend on their partners on the other side of the equation.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for Google to come out with the Chrome browser that has AI built into it.
I mean, I'm waiting to see that OpenAI browser. I mean, now they have no choice, right? They have to. Google has to do that. It's clearly in development somewhere.
Google's roadmap is whatever OpenAI does.
I know. Well,
right. In some ways, OpenAI does it, then Google, like we've been talking about, now we have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, look, Google is an incredibly innovative company. Like, we partner with them a lot, and they do a lot. Like, they have a lot of really interesting innovation. I think a lot of which doesn't ever really see the light of day. Like, most people don't see. But if you partner with them, you get to see it internally. So, I don't think they're sleeping on this. I think it's just the pace. And they have had to move a little slower, honestly, because they're a bigger business and they're diverse, and they have to think about their cloud business and their search and their ads business and their, everything. So OpenAI, again, singular focus. But, they are moving fast, and they're also really expanding a lot.
So as innovation, are there any ideas like you've seen out there? Like, I would love to be able to do something different with the interface of Forbes because I see...
Yeah.
Like, can you give us any inkling of what that is? Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, where we are focusing our kind of product and tech and data products and data engineering team is really around crafting those new experience, like trying to be a little forward thinking about those behavior shifts and those expectation shifts. And so
But that's hard to do in today's publisher world.
It is. I mean, everything's hard to do in publisher world. It's hard.
There you go. There's the name. There's the name. Everything's hard to do in publisher world, producer.
It is. I mean, being in product and technology in a publisher, you would, like, I think externally people think you have a singular focus, but you have many, many focuses. So it's really hard to prioritize. You have like...
And you only get to pick a quarter to really focus on, right? Otherwise,
I mean, you'd be surprised. We do a lot. We do a lot with a little, but the big things are a couple a quarter. But right now, where we're really focused, and this is actually, I think, what's nice in some ways, if you want a silver lining about the GenAI stuff for publishers, is that a lot of different what used to be competing priorities coming from like the editorial side or the sales side or the product side are aligning. They're starting to align because AI is front of mind for everybody. So all of our advertisers are asking about it. They want, what are the AI experiences you're working for? What can we how can we think about, How can we be a part of that? How can you use our technology
Fascinating.
to
They're all
showcase
aligning
that?
to sort of come to.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's like the only time that that's happened in my career. I've spent so much time being like, guys, can we all just get on the same page about what we're doing? And now it is coming together, but it's also a lot. And so we really need to be disciplined.
What data do you look at to make some of these product decisions? Like what's driving what you're looking at?
I mean, that is a bit of a challenge because we still have gaps in the data around, like we have our traditional data sources, which is like every single audience metric that we have. Exactly.
Which I hate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a data source for us.
Yep.
Now we kind of don't use the visualization platform anymore. We pull everything into our data lake, and then we have our own kind of ways to interact with it that are more flexible because they're kind of built for us. But I think we have a bit of a challenge now because there are some gaps in our vision of GenAI search referral traffic specifically, and really isolating that. And we certainly understand the impacts of it. It has, over the past, I think since about April, we really started seeing like big traffic hits. Everybody did.
Well, the latest I saw was the average site was down 15 to 20%.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to something on NPR this morning, and they were saying there were a couple of people that said 50.
50.
BI said 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And then you also have Google Discover, which is going to roll AI into there, and a lot of publishers getting traffic from that.
Right. Discover is a whole different roller coaster because for a long time it was like up, down, up, down, up, down. It was very inconsistent. And then like over the past 2 years, it's been a really healthy source of traffic for a lot of publishers because Google...
And Google Discover is a great product.
It is. It took Google, I think, a long time to figure out what they wanted to do with it, but it is. It in some ways anticipated some of this. It was a personalized experience that was frictionless and really easy to use and was satisfying. It gave you what you wanted and gave you more of it.
And I love with Google Discover, like something you searched like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago sort of pops in there like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
still a little bit relevant.
Exactly. Like the algorithm feels good there.
Yes.
It doesn't feel creepy. It doesn't feel like it's forcing anything on you. It doesn't feel too narrow. Like sometimes, like I think the Facebook algorithm
it's the same stuff over and over.
Like,
you
oh
have to
God.
start right clicking and like, I don't want that.
Yeah, be like,
Give me
I
something
don't.
else.
I bought those shoes already. Please stop with the shoes.
Talk about community. How does community play in part of your whole product and innovation world? How do you think about that?
I mean, I think about community as focusing is understanding our audiences and understanding who they are, and they are not monoliths, right? We have kind of different profiles.
Do you put it into like 8 or 9 different profiles of the people on your site?
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can look at that, that's reflected in the way that Forbes has always thought about community, which is, a lot of it is kind of rooted in our franchise lists and in our events business, where we're able to both kind of talk about these communities of people and then convene these communities of people and listen to them. And that we can translate into personas on our site, and really like that then leads back to how do we create experiences that are not for everyone, that are like much more one-to-one, right?
Do you see, so that's the personalization. So I go to Forbes, you go to Forbes. Today we see the same site.
For the most part, I think if you look carefully, you will see differences, but what we are moving towards a place where that experience will be much more tailored to you. Again, because like that is going to be what people's expectations are more and more. They're going to expect experience because they within GenAI, they can create experiences that are tailored not just to them, but to their focus in that moment, right? Exactly what they're looking for then, and they can. It's not just a list of stories or sites they can go to. It's an immersive experience that they can guide and shape. And like that's
there's a
where
lot
we
to
need
use.
to be.
There's a lot that the user has to do to be able to give the inputs to get to that experience.
It is, but I think that will get easier. Okay. I think we're already getting more.
I think
fluent.
the user's trained to sort of do that now.
Yeah, we have. I mean, again, like I say this to my engineers all the time. I'm like, look, and everyone is like, our programming languages now are our spoken language.
It's natural
English.
language.
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
natural language. Yeah.
And I do think that people are becoming more trained, but I also think the mechanisms will get more frictionless. I think there will be because we are we're definitely moving towards a place where people are going to be trained to do that. They need to do less work.
Have you played with particle news at all?
I haven't.
Okay. So it's a bunch of news sources in there, and you hit the little, icon, and the icon lets you choose more up and down of what you want versus different verticals.
Nice.
And to me, it's like we've all been trained when you see that little wheel to click on it, and then you get to optimize what you want.
Yeah. The settings wheel.
Yeah, the settings wheel. And it's like we're all used to that now.
I know. I mean, look, this is what I tell product people and designers all the time. I'm like, you cannot fight human behavior. You have to go with it. If there's an icon that people have been trained to use,
that is such a great
use
point.
that icon.
Like, why create something new?
Because designers are always going to want to make something new. They want to design. They want to be creative. And I'm like, you're fighting against.
You should do a blog post of that. Here's the 10
will.
icons that every publisher use going forward. We should be consistent about this.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot. I feel like people are doing those blog posts, but I can definitely do one, even if it's just internally for my team. But that is that's a very tiny example of how we need to be thinking. Like it's not about, our company is still a media company. We're still based in journalism. We still have stories to tell, and we still have a point of view. We're not going to abandon that. We're not just going to be like, we'll be whoever you want us to be, but we need to understand what the paths in to that content and how to facilitate people getting to that content. And then also in some cases, how they want to connect with that content, because it may not be a long form story anymore all the time. And that's been a trend for a long time.
Well, I always joke that you write an article, it's 6 bullet points, and then it gets turned into a 1,000-word story, a 500-word story, a 200-word story, depending on what the user wants, and they get it all different ways.
Right. But then ultimately that user may want those 6 bullet points.
Or the 6 bullet points.
Yeah. Which means then you go through the experience of then translating the 6,000-word story
down to 6
back into the 6
It all
bullet
comes down to
points.
6 bullet points.
I mean, it can, but I think,
It's a better answer.
Look, I also look at the transformation of podcasting in this medium that we're in right now. There are a lot of podcasts that are 2 hours long, 5 hours long, multi-chapters that are 20 history podcasts that are 20 hours long, a series on the Civil War. It's not that people don't want long form. It's that we have to understand how they want to consume it. And it may not, I think that, there's a lot of competition in the information economy right now, and maybe people want to be able to consume longer form stuff in a way that they can either more easily break up or they can multitask while they're doing it. It's very hard to multitask when you're reading a 10,000 word story, right? So we just need to be open to helping, to facilitating our audiences and our communities, getting back to it. How do we create the pathways to get them to our content?
But Forbes is so lucky to have someone like you who thinks like this. Like, I've been in the industry a pretty long time. I don't think like that. So
it's my background. It's why, it's coming from a product, coming from a point of view of product. And again, because I'm uniquely positioned, or the product team is uniquely positioned, honestly, within our organization, I can have those conversations with, again, all of my peers coming from different parts of the company. And it creates the opportunity to have healthy conversations. I think mostly people are not like knee jerk, like, I can't talk about that, or
Right.
That's absolutely wrong. I mean, I think most people now in our industry are at a point where they will engage with those conversations, and we'll talk openly about, like, okay, what is our future? How are we going to get there? How do we make sure we stay relevant?
So ChatGPT came out in, I think, November 22.
Yep.
So it's been 2.5 years, almost 3 years. Probably the fastest 3 years we've ever seen, right?
Crazy.
Fastest ever. Any fast forward another 3 years from today or from November 25. Like, do any of us have any clue what it's going to look like and how information and news will be consumed?
In 3 years, no. I mean, I think I think it will be an even more fractured landscape, probably. Like, we will be getting information in a lot of different places. I don't know 100% what that's going to look like. those experiences, like the ChatGPT search experience, it offers so much. It's going to be really hard.
And it's the answer experience, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really hard to. I mean, I think it's the answer experience. It's also like, I mean, I guess research is answers too. It's just like it's very appealing, and it's very it's going to be really hard to change that human behavior as it starts to catch on.
Like you said, the icons we all know. Right now, we know this experience from 2.5 years because it's been so compelling that
Yeah.
we're using it all the time.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think where we're going to go now, and where we are starting to go, is like, can we not recreate some of those experiences, but translate some of that expected behavior to our sites, and so that people can get the sense of satisfaction that they will get from that, question and answer experience. They can have some of that, on Forbes.com. They can have that kind of choose your own adventure experience where you really can not only navigate the information the way you want to, but you can also have it presented to you in the way you want to. Maybe it's, again, we talked about bullet points or summaries, but also maybe it's audio formats, maybe it's video formats, maybe it's interactive formats where you can ask questions to it and it can talk back to you, all kind of rooted in, our data set, because the OpenAI has the whole,
Right.
the whole
But if-
world
if-
of the internet.
I just get concerned if every publisher had the choose your own experience.
Yeah, I know.
It gets really complicated from a user perspective.
It does, and I'm not saying like that is going to be the entirety of our site experience at all. But I do think we need to, we're experimenting with understanding how our users do navigate experiences like that. Like, we're doing a lot of testing. We are putting a lot of things out there. Again, because we're trying to be led by user behavior. We have hypotheses and we're laying bets, but then we have to be able to learn how people use them. So we are in the process of understanding how does our audience respond to that? What is too much, or what is the right amount? Where's the Goldilocks point?
And it might be different for each individual, right? So
Each individual, each content area. I mean, I think there are a lot of different routes you can go. From my perspective, it needs to stay rooted in our brand. Like, it has to feel authentic. Like, there's nothing worse than the kind of hey boomer moment. Like, I do not want that to be Forbes, where it's like, who are you trying to be? Like, we need to stay authentic to our voice and who we are. And that voice is rooted in, again, over 100 years of journalism.
And how do you think editorial changes? And do you sit with editorial and say, let's make something different that might be more valuable in the future for the human web versus the agentic web? Like, how do those conversations happen?
Yeah, I mean, I sit with editorial and talk with them a lot, and
They must love talking to you, though. Like, I'm being serious.
They do, because again, like, I always frame it as like, how do we make sure we can connect what we're doing, what we're writing to the audience we want to reach? Like, nobody wants to write in a vacuum, right? And in some ways, that is the major fear of the way the internet is moving, is like, how do we get people here? Are we going to be writing in a vacuum?
And what's your favorite metric of whether an article that was made is successful or not?
There's so many. I don't like scroll depth that much because I don't think it's like particularly relevant. I think sometimes scroll depth can be people like looking for something they're not finding.
Okay. So throw that one out.
I do think it's like the amount of interactions that they're having on the site. Like, are we getting them to stay? Are we able to surface more things that they're interested in, either content or experiences?
Time spent.
I think also for us, do they want to extend their relationship with our brand, right? Like, do they want to sign up for a newsletter and start to experience Forbes in their inbox, which for us is very valuable because it gets them to come back to the site more often. All of our metrics, show that.
Newsletters are
They're gold. Yeah. We have an email. We often have a marketing opt-in along with that email, which means we can offer them other things as we get to know them better, more about what they want. We can offer them things we have a higher degree of confidence that they are actually interested in. So I think those kind of like knock-on engagement metrics, obviously paid conversion, if somebody is going to sign up for our membership, it means that they they see a fairly significant amount of value in our content, in our brand, and that becomes then the opportunity to have a much longer relationship with that person. So some of those things are the way that I look at it. Like we look, again, like scroll depth, not my favorite.
One of the ones I like is impressions per page.
Yes.
Because I think it's a nice combination of editorial and commercial together that sort of gives you a
Totally.
sense.
Look, I also think that impressions per page or impressions per session, like as we look at less and less referral traffic coming to our site, we have to do more with that audience. Like we have to make sure that the people that we get there, that we offer them the opportunity to do more on the site, right? Like they can consume more content when we're there, and hopefully at some point we can find an opportunity to get them again to sign up for something so that we can extend the conversation.
Okay. Do you think the ad experience is just broken on all these publishers' websites? It feels like it's so 25 years ago and it has never really evolved.
I mean, it's going to have to change because it's based on scale, and everything about the internet that's based on scale is going to have to shift, at least for publishers. So I do think that, the things that I'm talking about in the immediate with my teams, both the sales team and the product team, is like when we are focusing on experiences that may not be about the amount of pages that someone is consuming, but is because they're just like they're diving deep into something, but they're staying in kind of the same place. What are the ad experiences that complement those that type of experience? Because it can't just be impression based; it has to be engagement based. And again, another metric I'm not a huge fan of is viewability, because viewability is the easiest thing to game.
It's amazing how many metrics that are bad out there, as opposed to like, here are the good. It goes back like, here's the icons we use, here's the metrics we should use. Let's keep this whole thing simple.
Right. I think everybody knows viewability is not the best metric in the world, but it's just like it's an easy one. Like, how else are we going to measure the kind of the sustained value of our brand message that like someone saw it? It served its purpose at the time, but I think engagement metrics around ad experiences are going to become more and more important. And I think also starting to apply some of the things we're talking about content experiences to ad experiences. How can you create real value in an advertiser's brand message so that someone actually wants to interact with it? They want to ask questions of it. They want to dive deeper into it. That delivers the advertiser's brand message in a really powerful way.
That's the whole new version of what advertising will look like.
Right.
Okay, I got one more question for you before we wrap up. Blocking the bots.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
I get it. I understand it, but you can't learn from it. If you don't understand how they're interacting, it's very, very difficult to learn anything from it. So it's a dance,
It's a dance.
It's a dance. Yeah. So, I mean, I think our initial reaction was, whoa, whoa, whoa. let's block them. The reality is they can get around the blocks.
Oh, the websites are so... My joke is that Reddit, like probably a good percentage of articles written on Forbes every day is on Reddit somewhere.
Right.
And if Gem and OpenAI...
Or just regurgitated somewhere else. They can mostly get around the blocks even on our site. Like they're, so...
Unless you sue them, they're...
Right. The blocks are not that effective. And again, like I think it's really hard to understand... we want to understand how the LLMs are interacting with our content. What are they looking at? What do they associate our brand with? Where are they seeing resonance? Yeah,
I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and he's like, 8 years ago, when advertising was huge, programmatic on publishers' websites, I could get every single person in the programmatic world, whether it's rappers or headers, in New York in my office to have a conversation, and it was easy.
Yeah.
And today, since all the talent and all the genius of what's happening with AI is all in San Francisco.
Right.
There's an asymmetry of information. It's very hard to have conversation with those people, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. No, I hear that. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, we need to both be in a learning phase and in an action phase. So we need to be listening and be examining and analyzing every data source we can. But we can't just stay there. We need to then use that to set direction and spur action.
Nina?
MSG?
Thank you so much. I'm not your father, though.
No,
I love that.
The other one.
This was such a great conversation.
It was
I
fun.
do love talking to product people. it makes me think so differently than how I think in my little analytical world.
It's awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
As everyone, thank you very much. Have any questions, let us know. Fabulous conversation. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.